All righty, welcome back for another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today, exciting podcast, jam-packed with a lot of reactions, a lot of positive momentum coming out of Norman after an exciting weekend on the recruiting trail. Tons of players, 4 stars, 5 stars, 3 stars, no stars, everything in between. Players that have received crystal balls since they left Norman, players that have decided to stay home and aren't coming to play at OU. Bunch of different things have happened this weekend. So we're going to try to run down at least a handful of things. Obviously, this won't be an exhaustive list. If you want to see more of an exhaustive list, you probably should go on our social medias. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below. And then be sure to subscribe. We're knocking on the door of 6,200. I mean, we're just a couple subscribers away. So help us get there. Turn the notification bell on so you know when we post videos like this. Get a direct push notification to your phone and just open it up and listen to it. So before we do, let's hit the subscribe button. So all right, so some down, a little bit of news on the not so great for Oklahoma, as I kind of hinted to in the beginning. A couple players ended up deciding that Oklahoma was not the place for them. The first one being Landon Hatchet. Came in for a visit this past weekend with his mom, and then Sunday morning posted a GIF basically of him in his Washington Husky uniform, and that was it. And that seems pretty apparent that that's he's staying home. Jose said his confidence was at 10%. Brandon and I were definitely a little bit more on the positive side, but I still find it odd that Sunday morning and you're already posting like, yeah, I'm not coming here. I mean, did Washington decide an NIL deal, was worth it with Landon? Or I wonder what ended up happening. Do you have any idea, Hose?
Probably Jetfish just pushing on boosters. If it is an NIL related thing, he probably pushed on boosters and like, hey, we need to keep this line solidified because we lost plenty to the draft, a lot of offensive firepower to the draft, and if we can just start with keeping a solid offensive line, it won't be that big of a transition coming, going into next year and then going into the Big Ten. Because if you have a bad offensive line in that conference, I mean, really in any conference, but I feel like in that one more than others, it's going to be apparent, and teams like Iowa will find a way to score points against you.
Yeah. Iowa doesn't score on anybody.
Speaking of Iowa, their offensive coordinator hire is, I don't even know what they're thinking. You have to go look them up. The statistics that he had at his couple previous stops to train
Well,
rep.
you probably went in there and interviewed and said, I can probably score 10 points a game. They were like, are you shitting me? That you could do that?
I can't wait for this Iowa under trend to continue.
10 points a game? Deal.
Yeah. So it's interesting, but the older brother, Gionni Hatchet, as of now, while we're recording this, has not decided one way or another. Seems like the door is still open. I don't know.
At this point, we just got to hope it's not a package deal like we thought it was at first. Hopefully Garion is still interested in Oklahoma. If you close on him, he was the player we wanted more anyway. He's a guy that I think can play right away. That's the one you want. Hopefully
Landon is
interested.
Yeah, Landon is recovering from a knee injury, so either way, he's taking next season, or a good portion of next season off probably, so he can recover from that.
Yeah. Well, wish him best of luck. Moving on. Another kind of on the downside of the news, Deion Petaway. We posted our video on Friday, and we expected him to be on campus this weekend. Ultimately, did not end up happening, and he committed to Texas A&M. We did say that we felt like Texas A&M was the leader in the video. He recently visited Texas A&M not too long ago, pulled the trigger, committed to him, didn't go to Norman. That one seems all but over and done with. It's unfortunate. Obviously, you would like to have thought that the connection with Jaquez Petaway would have been helpful, but considering his brother is Damian Samford at Texas A&M, brother versus cousin is a little bit of a different level.
Hopefully, Jaquez can shake him out of his shoes at A&M. That'd be fun.
And goes to Paytow from Katy. I think we just have to acknowledge that high school is basically anyone that's talented will be going to A&M.
And the only reason that we even hopped on in the first place, I mean, if we're being honest, is that tweet on social media we saw, which is, I think on social media you can kind of tell a lot of things sometimes, but sometimes it just means nothing. Because he quote tweeted that one thing about being crystal ball to A&M and just laughed at it like it was absurd, and then a couple weeks later he commits. So I think he knew the whole time he was trying to throw us off the scent, but it is what it is.
It's the way of the road, right? You win some and you lose some.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to a little bit more positive news. So one of the big takeaways from this weekend is all the crystal balls that have come in for 2025 four-star running back Tory Blaylock, 5'11", 190-pound running back out of Humble, Texas. Number 12 overall running back, holds 39 offers. I mean, so nearly 40 offers, two-sport athlete, runs track. He's got offers from Alabama, USC, amongst others, Auburn, all them. 2023, 89 carries, 616 yards, 11 touchdowns, and also had 19 receptions for 268 yards and 3 touchdowns. So an athletic talented guy. DeMarco Murray has identified him, it appears anyway. Crystal balls came in from pretty much everyone, from On3, Rivals, 247. I mean, pretty much most recruiting platforms have put in a crystal ball after this weekend. Seems like it's pretty positive on social media. This seems almost a matter of when, not if. I hate to assume, but what do you think, Jose?
Yeah, I'm with you on that last part. You don't want to assume stuff in recruiting, but it does seem to be very much an Oklahoma race to lose here. He's a really good running back. This room is pretty stacked, even with the transfer of Hollywood Smothers. You still have a very talented running back room. Bringing in Taylor Tatum at the end of the spring semester here. He'll be enrolling in the summer. You're not really missing anything of impact when you go into 2024, and then potentially adding this kid in the room for 2025 is going to help a lot. Because if you watch his huddle, to me, he looked like an Isaiah Pacheco that isn't trying to break the ground every time he takes a step. The way that he runs, he puts his head down, he fights through tackles so well. It looks like he could be a Sunday player if he can continue developing and keeping on this trajectory of honing in his talent. He's a hard runner, and it's fun to watch him break tackles because you can tell, at least at the high school level, he's a guy that when coaches are trying to game plan for that game the week of, they're telling their players, hey, we need to just run towards this kid. Any run play, we need all 11 of you to go try to put him down, because it's hard for one kid to take him down. And I think it's going to be the same with the college level. He's just a tough dude to bring down.
No, he's fun. Yeah, I think, you mentioned Isaiah Pacheco. I think he runs the ball similar to that. I think he catches the ball better out of the backfield than Isaiah Pacheco does. So I think he's a little bit of a hybrid there, because I think he's a better ball catcher than he gets credit for. But you look at his family background too. His dad, Derek, played 7 years in the NFL. He's got 2 brothers. One of them is a safety at Wisconsin. One of them is a safety at Sam Houston. A very, very athletic family all around. He's the youngest of them. Look at his numbers. He averaged 7 yards a carry and 11 touchdowns, and he also had 300 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. So he's just a very dynamic threat. 7 yards a carry is very, very efficient. This would be awesome.
It would be. It's a very crowded room. There's no shortage of talent or depth at the running back position, but it looks like DeMarco Murray is locking in on him, and I would imagine it seems like this could be over sooner rather than later, in the next week or 2, maybe. Could be sooner than that. I'm not sure, but based off the momentum, it seems like Oklahoma's got this one rolling, and hopefully they can seal the deal and pick up another 4-star commitment, because he's a talented running back. You don't get 39 offers and not be good. So DeMarco Murray kind of gets the guys that he's really focusing on more times than not. So pretty good stuff there. Let's talk a little bit of the wide receiver room. So we'll shift over. We're still on the offensive side, but we're going to talk about a position coach that's much like DeMarco Murray. Emmett Jones kind of gets whoever he wants for the most part, more times than not. He is on fire. Earlier today, when today we're recording this is Sunday, there was a picture posted of Manny Choice, Caleb Cunningham, Grayson Harris, and why am I blanking on the other one that's currently committed to Oklahoma? I am
Elijah Thomas.
Elijah Thomas. Yes, I was totally blanking. So 2 of the 4 are committed to Oklahoma, and the other 2, obviously Manny Choice and Caleb Cunningham, have not committed to Oklahoma. Caleb Cunningham is a 2025 5-star running back out of Mississippi. Talented, one of the best wide receivers in the country. Had over 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns. Then Emmanuel Choice or Manny Choice, 6'4", 190-pound wide receiver. Put up a little over 500 yards last year and 6 touchdowns. It seems like these might be your 4 guys. And I know that Isaiah Mosey is out there as well, the kid from Lee Summit, Missouri, connections to OU. But it seems like Oregon and Missouri are becoming more and more threats and players here, and it seems like Oklahoma might be at least looking in other directions because they're starting to get that feeling. It seems like these could be your 4. Now, whether or not they can actually lock down Caleb Cunningham, that's a whole different story. Caleb Cunningham did announce that he's got some big news coming out on Monday. I would imagine that's a top 10 list or something like that. Brendan, what do you think about the wide receiver room? Caleb Cunningham, Manuel Choice. What do you think?
Just start with Caleb Cunningham because me and Host talked about him last week or 2 weeks ago at this point now. So I think he's one of the most freaky athletes in the entire 2025 class just in general because the dude put up almost 1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns as a receiver in high school on about 24 yards of reception. But in basketball, he averaged like 20 and 10. The dude is just freaky athletic. He hails from Mississippi. I think Mississippi State is crystal ball for him. That would be a huge get to pull him out of Starkville and kind of get him to Norman. That'd be awesome. Man, Choice is a big dude, man. He's 6'4", 6'5"-ish. He's a big, tall receiver. Reminds me a little bit of Jaden Gibson with that. Both would be awesome, but Caleb Cunningham is something special. That's my takeaway on those guys.
Definitely a special guy, and we can't forget about Jaden Nickens, the Oklahoma, the in-state talent at the wide receiver room. So it'll be interesting to see, I guess, between the 2 guys that were there that are currently still being recruited that aren't committed to Oklahoma. You would assume Caleb Cunningham is probably priority 1, but clearly the coaches see something, and specifically Emmett Jones sees something in Manny Choice where they felt comfortable enough to be the first school to offer this guy a D1 scholarship, and I think just a scholarship in general to play football at the next level. He's a big receiver, which is something that they have been going after since Brent Venables and this team of coaches came together, bigger bodies. The tough thing about Caleb is, can you get him out of the state of Mississippi? Even still, it seems like Jeff Lebby and the Mississippi State coaches are doing everything they can to show Caleb that he is their number 1 guy and probably the guy that will help them turn that program around from what it was, last year. Really, really bad season down there. So they're going to be tough competition to beat out for him. Not only because he's an in-state product, but we are very familiar with what Jeff Lebby can do with talented receivers and how he can give them the ball. Probably going to be a guy that will get an opportunity at Mississippi State to compete for a starting position day 1 rather than coming to Oklahoma. He might need to compete a little bit more to get any playing time, not just a starting role, which is very different opportunities, right? You got to figure out, do I want to play immediately or have that or have it feel like a little bit more guaranteed that it's going to happen because they are reloading down there in Stark Vegas, or do I want to go to Oklahoma and figure, see if I am as good as I believe I am in a much more talented wide receiving room.
Stark Vegas.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's my fault. Yeah, Jaden Nickens, I don't want to leave him out. He just wasn't there from what I saw. He didn't post any pictures. He didn't go this weekend, I didn't think. Yeah.
He was not in attendance, I don't believe.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I mean, even if they do lose out on Caleb Cunningham, I mean, he's still potentially pulling a guy like a Manny Choice. I mean, he's still talented in his own right, and you've already got a talented crop of wide receivers. And Kevin Sperry was there, and I would assume he was in Caleb Cunningham's ears, telling him if you want to
house that Caleb Cunningham, man.
Yeah, he's an elite talent. Speaking of elite talents, let's shift to the defensive side of the ball. We've talked about him a lot, and I'm sure this is going to be a guy that we continue to talk about probably for the next, I don't know, say 9, 10, 11 months. 2025 5-star linebacker, safety, hybrid. Jonah Williams, number 2 linebacker. That's what 247 has him in the country. 2-sport athlete, football, baseball. Oklahoma's recruiting for both the football and the baseball program. We're after him this weekend. There's a lot of positive momentum coming out of this visit this weekend for Jonah Williams in Oklahoma. Now, do I think it's going to be shut down tomorrow? Not a chance. But I think Oklahoma, at the end of the day, they've done it basically as much as they can. And at least, the way they were able to shut down Taylor Tatum was the baseball program.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that Oklahoma wouldn't be able to get Jonah Williams without, if he wasn't a 2-sport athlete. But Oklahoma has a proven track record of being able to work with 2-sport athletes and having them flourish with Kyler Murray. And then, now you've got Taylor Tatum going through the program. And then you could potentially have another 5-star going through the program, both programs. Oklahoma has a track record. Other schools, for the most part, will have to tell them, well, we could do this. But Oklahoma says, well, we do this. And this is what we do with our 2-sport athletes. I do think that's a big thing. And I don't want to underestimate how much of an impact that has. I mean, Oklahoma is Oklahoma, but when you can throw a baseball program, and as good as Oklahoma's baseball program is, because I mean they're competitive and obviously nearly won a national championship just a couple of years ago. Brandon, what do you think?
Well, not only Taylor Tatum, you also got James Nesta doing that same thing. I think
True.
Skip Johnson is a great recruiter in his own right. But sticking to football here, I'm just going to bring up that Jonah Williams stat that I brought up last time we talked about him, because I still think it is something that's not talked about enough. The dude touched the ball 6 times on defense. When it comes to fumble recoveries, he had 2 picks. He had 4. He brought back 4 of them for touchdowns, and he brought back 2 kick returns, 2 punt returns. So the dude is just, I mean, he's a freak athlete. He's hybrid enough to play linebacker, can also play safety, obviously. I mean, he would be so fun in that defense. He's like the perfect cheetah candidate. Yeah, I mean, I think him being a baseball player does not hurt at all because, as you mentioned, man, we've proved that we can do it. And Skip Johnson is kind of a dog in his own right here when it comes to recruiting.
Recruiting platforms, I know they have the athlete tag for guys that kind of play all over the field, but they should just go ahead and put a cheetah tag on guys like Jonah Williams, because he's exactly what you think of when you, I mean, I guess the model for a cheetah that we all think of is Isaiah Simmons when he was back in Clemson, just because of how big he was. And it's very similar to a stature of a Jonah Williams. There's a lot to like here when you look at the football player, but where Oklahoma stands, I bet that Isaiah Simmons and that familiarity, how similar they are coming out of high school, is something that is being sold to him. Because if you can I think Isaiah was a top 10 draft pick the year he came out of college. He was definitely a first rounder, if I remember correctly. Maybe not that high, but he was a guy that a lot of people thought very highly of coming out of college, and wouldn't be a bad place to be coached by Brent Venables.
Yeah, he was number 8 overall to the Giants.
Yeah, pretty talented. if Oklahoma can somehow, I mean, I'm not saying somehow, but if Oklahoma ends up getting Jonah Williams, you add him, and then seems like the wide receivers, if you could add a Caleb Cunningham, and Kevin Sperry will ascend in the rankings, I believe. You've got talented wide receivers, Jaden Nickens, I mean, all those guys, and what they're going to do along the offensive line potentially. This recruiting cycle could turn out pretty darn impressive for Oklahoma. If they very well might have 2 to 3 5-stars in this class. I don't think that's outrageous to say that they could end up in that range. If they get, I would say 2 is probably more likely, but I think there's a world where they get 3, and they should get that bump going to the SEC as well. So staying on the defensive side, we'll talk. The last guy we're going to talk about is 2025 4-star defensive lineman Landon Rink, 6'2", 270-pound player out of Cypress, Texas. The Texas legacy. His dad played at the University of Texas. Kind of gives a little bit of a Colton Vasek feel here. But however, despite all that, Rink has been on campus to OU multiple times. A lot of positive momentum coming off this visit to Oklahoma. Now, I know he's predicted on 247 to Texas, and ultimately that might be where he ends up. I know there's a lot of positive momentum, but I tend to err on the side of I think he'll probably still end up at Texas, just because I feel like if you grew up in a family, your dad played at a school, and there's like a big rivalry. I mean, it's one thing if he went to, like Kansas State or something. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not a big rivalry between OU and Kansas State. But when you grow up in a family, your dad played at one school, and then their biggest rival out there, you go against that. And all your life, you've been told, hook 'em horns and all that stuff. I have a hard time seeing it happen, but on the same token, the kid could think like, well, I want to do my own thing. I'm not, I'm going to branch out and do my what's best for me. And I'm not saying that couldn't happen, but my gut just tells me I have a hard time when it comes time to sign the piece of paper, him picking Oklahoma. Jose, what do you think?
I think that's fair, and I think a lot of people will be thinking back to Colton Vasek. I mean, that was a heck of a recruitment to follow, because Oklahoma seemed to have won that out of nowhere, coming out of the official visits of July and August and early August, committed to Oklahoma. And then, there was always that just feeling in the back of your mind. He would take visits, to go watch games, and then the Red River happened, and obviously Red River happened that year. And that seemed to be what kind of tipped the scales all the way in Texas's favor. I don't think we're going to see a Red River like that I hope we don't ever see one like that in our lifetimes again. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But Landon is the type of defensive lineman that both schools are going to be heavily going after. And he's very talented. He's got, I couldn't remember how many offers. He's got more than enough offers for a guy of that size.
31.
All those schools that are going after him right now are some of the biggest in the country. I mean, the ones that are considered warm or the most likely places for him to go are Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Texas, and A&M. And then he still has schools like LSU, Miami, Nebraska, Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State that I'm sure are still hoping to get in that race, in that mix where he might consider him going into signing day. Oklahoma's got a lot of work to do, for sure. But I think this year it's going to be, again, and it's probably going to be the same for every other, like every other position group, but with the defensive line and the offensive line, it's about what can you do on the football field to prove that this is where I can develop and go into the NFL. And especially because you pull the class like you did in 2024 with David Stone and Nigel Smith and Jane Jackson and everyone else on the other guys on the power line. These defensive linemen are going to want to see that there's opportunity and that there's a place for them to develop in that defensive line room.
Brum, you said exactly what I was going to say. I mean, I just feel like, not only were, you mentioned Colton Vasek, his dad played at Texas. Landon Rink's dad, Shane, played at Texas as well. They were there at the exact same time period. They were teammates. They were 1991 and 1995, they were teammates. Colton obviously went to Texas. Now I'm sure he's pushing, Landon to go to Texas with him. I just, there's too many things with that point to Texas. He's crystal ball to Texas. I think he's going to end up at Texas.
And the one thing I do want to point out, Landon Rink is extremely talented. He's a defensive lineman, and he had 15 sacks last year.
Yeah,
That's a player that Oklahoma would love to have.
It would be a nice get for the Shorthorns.
And his stature is one where you could see him play on the outside or the inside, because he's 270. Like, how much more weight do you need him to gain for him to be a versatile defensive lineman like that?
Yeah, he could come in and compete and contribute pretty early in his career. So, I mean, ultimately, obviously, we still have 11 months until early national signing day. It'll be here before we know it, and then we'll start really talking about 2026, which will be insane. But this is something we're going to have to watch. And I think as of, January 29th, my gut's just telling me I have a hard time seeing this happen, but I hope I'm wrong. So maybe I'll be on a freezing cold takes, but I guess we'll see. But that's all I've got, unless you guys have anything else, Brandon, in the video.
Super Bowl matchup set, boys. We had championship Sunday yesterday. Some pretty good games both ways. So we got Chiefs, we got Niners. It's a Super Bowl rematch of four years ago, whatever. I can't remember exactly which Super Bowl it was, but the Chiefs won that one in a close game. I think it'll be close again. I'm going Chiefs again this year. Who's your Super Bowl pick now that we have the matchup?
Chiefs by 6.
I'm more focused on the Pro Bowl.
Well, but who's your Super Bowl pick? Because that is the end of your time.
I was about to say, no way.
I don't know, man. I don't want either of these teams to win.
Oh yeah, I don't want either of them to win.
If this is the first Super Bowl that could ever end in a tie, I'd be content.
So you're not going to pick a winner?
I'll pick a winner in a week from now, I guess.
Okay.
Early take, I guess, is the Chefs.
Yeah.
It appears to be unanimous Chiefs on 2Plane Sports, but Hose is very on the fence there.
Well, he's also the guy that he thinks the Vikings will win the Super Bowl next year.
Vikings will be winning the Super Bowl next year. Go ahead and count it.
Okay. Anyway, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on. Be sure to tell Jose he's insane for thinking the Vikings will win next year. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below. And turn the notification bell on. And then also, we're only like 10, 11 subscribers away from 6,200. Help us get us there, and we'll catch you guys next time.